So, the spawn of stunt programming, exorcising the demons in your tests. What happens? Remember, don't do this at home. Don't do this in production. Don't do this in new code. Don't do this for any longer than you have to. And certainly don't put it on YouTube for everyone to see. I think I can put that back there. So what? Lee, am I okay still? What happened? All you have is a hammer, and you ignored on my own. I ignored my own advice, and what happened? We went and created tests. We created tests that can change production code. Our deploy code after this point was certainly cleaner, but our test directory was drowning in technical debt. As I've been hinting, I'll show you. Get your Perl sensitive sunglasses ready. I will show you. Would you believe how complex it is to reliably override core global open? And all we wanted to do was inject contents for one file, and then we did it in a second place because we needed it in a second script. And production is fine, but the tests are they're so bad. It looks like if we run them, AWS is going to open a portal to hell, and I don't want to find out what the bill for that one is. So here is the next phase of the testing story. How we reduce the need for blunt override libraries by careful use of temporary directories, include ordering, log for Perl configs, and more. And I am going to show some work code.
One slide back, please.
One slide back. Oh, you want that?
Yes.
It's only approximate. I'm sure if I did it programmatically, I could make it a perfect circle. I was eyeballed in Inkscape.
I needed this button before I introduced. I'm sorry.
Right, I'm useful. So survivor bias. We have, good enough now earns money. Go and show work code. It's not pretty. It only gets the job done well enough. It might not make you happy, but it might make you money. And it's paying for my salary and me coming here and Lee and so on, and 100 and something other people. Yeah, so good enough now earns money. If you decide your goal is perfection eventually and you take forever, you will run out of money and go bankrupt. Kind of the thing of this is that ugly code lives longer on average. So we have 20-year-old work code. You want dollars, use Perl. And survivor bias was one of those. Was in World War II, bombers came back full of bullet holes, and somebody smart went. The obvious one was, hey, we should armor the places where these bullet holes are. And somebody smart went, no, that's the place where you can shoot a bomber and it doesn't fall out the sky. You need to put the armor where the place is armed. You have a bias in your idea of what's coming on by what survived. And these Brazilian guys looking at the end of their wing and going, well, that bit's clearly optional, isn't it? Looks ugly, but it works. Survivor bias. It looks ugly, but it works. So what are we testing? We are testing batch scripts, like I said, and they are run from cron. We write a test script to invoke those. And I realized when I did this talk previously that I was scripts and scripts and scripts. Victim was a good name, but anyway, we have a test script to invoke our batch script, possibly more than one time. And our test script will set up database fixtures and similar and set up an environment for the batch script to run in. It will run it, and it will test the output. Right. What are we overriding? We are overriding Slack, SMS and Slack, and email sending modules. As a bit of code I showed in a previous slide that did just that. In some cases, we are overriding them directly, like the thing I showed previously, where we want to track the sending and maybe even test it, but at least not annoy people. In some cases, we have subroutines to say the alerting threshold is going to be this, like 4 messages or 2 messages, and we set it to pretty much infinite so that we have an alerting threshold we overrode to stop things going out. We have the horrors that are called global open. We found we were overriding that for our JSON config. Don't load the config from the usual place. Load this one I wrote some lies into. And we're overriding it for other files, particularly I want to write a file. The script has a fixed path name for output, and I want to write to that place. No, you don't. Override. And we have readdir almost always from the file slurper module, where we want to return some alternative facts. The directory really has these files in. Yeah. And we have an archiving library. When we get a file from a bank after we've processed it, we move it sideways into a directory based on year and month. If you have written test scripts with test fixtures that in your repository at the checked out level, this will gleefully move a checked in file somewhere else. So you have to stop it somehow. Otherwise, certainly if you're using Docker with everything mapped back, your repository, your checked out repository now has changed files in it. And even if you're not, run the test script twice. Either you have to write the test script clean up after itself and push it back, or the second run of your test script will fail before you zap and rebuild your thing. And we're talking to banks for a bunch of the time with net SFTP foreign, so we need to override that thing's new module. What I realized, show me the money, show me the code. I'm going to show some code. I am purposely not going to explain it. You either understand what it's doing or you don't. The point is not to explain what we did. The point is to explain what we deleted. And in places, this is the point we're trying to get to. These two lines do the actual test, and the rest of it is just hoopla, just dancing around to get there. So the first one is Slack and SMS sending things. The place we're actually trying to get to is, I want to say that I tried to send a message to Slack. We're saying I've tried to send a message to SMS. Those are the actual interesting bits of this. The rest of it. Overriding to stop it reloading, this, that, and the other, override subroutines, and a whole bunch of... Right. These are actual... so we want to stop those libraries loading, we want that. We just want this bit so we can capture standard out, but there's a whole lot of code I had to write to do that. Hey, it's not better if I don't explain it. The capture logging, which was on the previous talk. The bit we actually cared about was getting here. Print when I saw a log message. Print that I called log.die. This one, we can set this up. That's a neat trick. I forgot about that. Remember that. So again, it's a standard mock object. It forces our logger to standard out. That's the bit I care about. The test then run this and check the result, and it confirms our control flow. And as I said before, logging in this case might be the only hook we get to see where the test control flow actually went. The script control flow actually went. What actually run? If we change the code, did we stop it getting somewhere? You thought that was bad. Get ready. Overriding, don't read this. Just look and weep. The point is you have to override every possible thing. There's a lot of boilerplate to cover anything else. I think this comes from Perl Lumps, and I think it's correct. Like, hey, is anyone using single argument open? Yeah, we've got to do that. Actually, there is a bit I'm going to highlight. What we're trying to get to is this. If we're trying to write to a particular hard-coded output file name, and I'm sorry if you're at the back and find that hard to read, or someone's head's in the way, but the slides don't work otherwise. This is what I'm trying to get to. This is the test needed that. The rest is just annoyance. Oh, and that's only half of it. The second half of overriding open carries on. If it's two argument open, do two argument open. Otherwise, this is the and so on and so on. All the other temp file stuff. This is all boilerplate, just so that we could do that. Concentrate on that. 10 minutes. That's good. I'm astoundingly on time. Concentrate on that part. This is what we're trying to do is in our config module, load the JSON file with the config. We have written out in a different place a config that is mostly a copy of the real dev config, but we've changed the database connection parameters to be the fixtures database we just built. And we want the script to run to use that rather than the generic database on the development system. And we are going through all this massive dance just so that if the file name happens to match that, we tell it, oh, no, don't look there, look here. Yeah, Julian, yeah?
Briefly, why can't you check this element in the array exists, and if so, change it and then go to call without and skip everything else?
Can I check whether this exists and just skip the rest? Possibly, but I delete all this code in the next slide. That's what I'm trying to get to. The don't understand. Yeah, I think you're probably right. And anyway, what we're trying to do is to cheat on the config loading object of ours. And this, can we pick a better target? That call was in one place in FileSlurper read test. And actually that had been imported into our module. So we didn't override FileSlurper, we override one place. Yeah, I haven't highlighted this. Whoopsie, I wanted that. It's highlighted there in the app config module. That's the one place we need to override. And if it's there, read the text from the different place. That gets rid of half of the need to override open. And for all the scripts that only needed to override change the config path, that's gone. So now we've simplified our overrides. Can we do better? How does the config system find that file? It turns out that the config module looks at the path it was pulled from disk there and goes relative to it. It's in lib at config.pm, it goes chop, 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 and then go forwards and find config processor JSON from up, sideways, down. So we can actually control that. Because where I found it on disk is a function of @inc. So I can get rid of the override completely by cheating using a know the code looks relative include. I build this. I build a private little tree in a temporary directory that contains lib at config.pm, which is a symlink to where it really is in my checked out thing. I, at the same level, write out that processor JSON file with the database parameters changed. I happen to write out a log for Perl config because I know what the next slide says. So I create my temporary tree. I symlink real app config into it. I put the configs in that tree. I make sure that tree is first in @inc by invoking the script with -i to set on the command line so that that goes first. It pulls the library from that path. It finds it. Someone's laughing. Hey, someone's awake. And now I have untouched code that reads that config. I've got rid of all my overrides. Yeah, I know I've made the file tree more complicated, but it's kind of easier. And the point was, I now also control the log for Perl config. We had a development log for Perl config that did stuff. I just want to do this. It turns out you can do that in log for Perl configuration. You have a conversion pattern that says, shout the string log, %p expands, I think, to the level, if I've got this right, %m in a new line. So send the message with that. And set the threshold to info, because I think our default logging's at warn, doesn't matter. Thing is, I can do info, warn, error, and fatal like that, just with config. I don't need to, so all that override code you saw goes. Caveat is, it turned out we didn't need logdi. Logdi stuck around from the batch script from previous talk. So I eliminated a whole override library by doing better use of config. So I think I'm on time, but no one's told me I'm not yet. We had all those overrides. This is the email override. This is the bit I actually cared about. Print the subject and the message body to stand it out so that I can test it. And we had code that was sending mail with actually multiple modules. You'll see that in a mo. But I found that I refactored the code. Instead of calling mail directly, there's a generic notification library, 5 cool, called @notify, which sadly we can't really open source, not because it's business specific, but it's deeply tied to our config system and our logging system and so on. And hard codes our particular API we use with our SMS sender. But this unifies our Slack, SMS, and mail sending. It gets rid of those Perl style libraries, and it gets rid of this. And its configuration is, where am I sending stuff? This Slack address, yeah, this Slack channel, that SMS thing, that email address, or standard out. It's got a debugging mode where I can configure it so that instead of mailing people or SMSing them, it sprays to standard out. And my dev configs now just say, notify standard out. And that eliminates the need to override all those other libraries. So as we add more tests and we can refactor our existing legacy code to say, use app notify, and then all the tests just say that. Where's it get to? So the basic game here was to fake up a tree in a temporary, or we're going to fake up a tree in a temporary directory. We copy our fixture files to the correct locations within that tree. Again, if our archiving module moves them in this temporary tree, it doesn't matter because that tree gets thrown away at the end of the test script. We don't need to fake open or readdir because we create placeholder files or possibly real files in that tree. There's no need to clean up, as I said. We don't need to override open to trap output path names because fortunately for us, they're all hard-coded but relative. They now just write relative in our temporary tree in /tmp, and we read them there and go, yeah, good. And then at the end of the test, it goes. Our only little gotcha on this, as I noted, well, there's a second slide with the gotcha in a mo, is that we have a bunch of golden results output, and it really is. We do need to put the temporary directory root in there. It was easier to create a golden result which said $root, where that was TMP, than get the golden results back and regitch, mush them around. But basically, this made a lot of things simpler. Oh yeah, there's a slide with the diff stack coming. The one big gotcha we had is when refactoring my tests to use this about a week and a half ago, see competence-driven development, we replaced an override of readdir with real files. And the operating system order of what comes back from readdir is unspecified. And our dev and our CI system are allowed to, and they disagree about what order it comes back. For one of them, they come back in the order you added files to the directory, and for the other one, they come back in reverse order. And so I was trying to refactor tests, and rather than just send them all off the CI system and play whack-a-mole, I wrote an override for readdir that deals with one case I care about. Just return all the results in reverse order and see what tests failed. Oh, that test failed. Fix that test. Oh, that test failed. Fix that test. And I could all loop globally, iterate locally, fix my tests to deal with real directories. So yeah, you do get some traps that you have to figure out as you clean your tests up. So what did I achieve? What did I exorcise? 207 lines of deletions of override libraries. The entire override config module went. The entire override chronolog went. Specific fetch files modules for all of our 4 banks partners went. That's just the conference development branch, which is currently unmerged because got finished too late. Earlier, I managed to eliminate an entire override module, I think with the config stuff, and that email stuff, the only use of MIME-Lite MIME-Lite was eliminated by app notify. So got rid of about 300 lines of mucky code. 1 minute. Sweet. What remains? We have those override things. We have overrides for mail sender and mail send mail. Told you we had a lot of different, 2 code bases collide. The legacy Slack and SMS. So those will all go soon. The top one, UK brand name, not giving away that one. Could be replaced by fixture data, but it's easier not to. But basically, almost all of my override libraries will die because I managed to replace it. So the conclusions are, code is bad in K, don't write it. You can use different configurations for testing. You can use a different file system tree for testing. You can structure or refactor your code to make testing easier. That's our notification library. And the most important thing that we didn't learn from this is most overrides should not be short-lived. It shouldn't take 9 months from one conference to another to realize that you made a mistake. I believe that's it, and time for questions, and I'm strictly out of time. Max.
Do you think we should have more conferences so that you're...
Do we think we should have more conferences so that I write more code? Delete more code. Yeah. I wrote the talk on the... No, I wrote the other talk on the train because there was just so much going on and I promised it for a conference. And, well, the more dangerous part is if the conference schedule is really empty and everyone wants talks, and I could do another talk, and no, possibly not. It's a bad idea. I like that question. Yeah, question?
Yeah, you did this in that way, instead of refactoring first, to reduce the risk of refactoring later. What what can you say in regards to risk and did you have better refactoring ideas afterwards, or did you cover things you never expected could be refactored, or did you see really bad stuff that was implemented you never would have seen?
That's a long question and hard to summarize. What was the risk by doing this
Big
order?
one.
Well, I think the most important part, as kind of this talk said, was actually that iterated on the overriding and working out how to clean things up. So that's kind of two bits. So the first go was overriding configuration by overriding core global open. That let us test some things. And then we realized we could package that up into a module. And then we realized that we could do it in file slurper read text. And then we realized that we didn't even need to override that. So we iterated the improvements. The second one was looking at enough of the code and going, oh, if I just clean this up like that, if I change the code like that, it would be easier to test. I'm not sure how well that answered the question, but it sounded like an entire talk, which is the problem. It's a good question, I apologize. I don't think I can answer that well. There's technically a bonus slide, but I think we're out of time and we're trying to be tight today, so I think I should stop, shouldn't I? All right, this is funny for work code. That's been true from Solaris, 1993 Sun Microsystems. And no, it's all comments and blank lines. Well, it wasn't anymore, but yeah, there's an explanation of this. But no, how many copyright years it has and whatever. So this is like typical work code. And yeah, the final one is, while I was on that machine, this is a commercially supported operating system for the next 2.5 years, and it's that version of Perl. That old. This, I believe, is the oldest commercial. Okay, it's Oracle. You pay them money, you pretend to get support. They take your money, they're happy.